This portion of the CU podcast is brought to you by Pixel Frames. Great games make for great memories, and with Pixel Frames, those nostalgic moments can decorate a room, your office, or just about anywhere else with these layered shadow boxes.
These shadow boxes provide a unique multi-layer perspective that bring out the character of each scene. Each layer is cut by laser to provide pixel-perfect details, and all frames are officially licensed and bring classic series to the lineup. There's Castlevania, Mega Man, Sonic the Hedgehog, Street Fighter, Double Dragon, Tetris, and even Battletoads. There's going to be more to come.
Yeah, I got the turbo tunnel right here from Battletoads.
Exactly what you want to immortalize about Battletoads.
Exactly. I got the Contra attacking the Red Falcon head there from the last stage. These are great.
Yep, I've got the Shinobi one, and the Sonic ones are great. There's a large selection of the Sonic frames.
These are made for gaming fans, collectors, and home decor enthusiasts. Pixel Frames is sure to add a bit of nostalgia to any space in your life. Visit the new website at pixel-frames.com and pick yourself up some Pixel Frames. Mm-hmm. Ian, we had another Heritage Auctions event recently. It actually ended within the past week. I think it ended around Thursday, Friday, around there. Wait, so don't do the eyebrow thing again. Freaks me out. Freaks me out. Auctioning off sealed graded games. We talk about this. We get attacked by.
Have we talked about this before?
We have talked about this before.
Okay.
For about 3-4 years, we've talked about this.
It wasn't.
And this is an interesting.
Slipped my mind.
This is an interesting auction because it allows us to look at more of the depressing state that the speculators must be in at this point, because we talked about a month ago about prices dropping 70%, Sonic the Hedgehog dropping over $100,000, and a bunch of others.
Right.
So I have a folder, Ian, that I made.
Yeah, I'm looking for it. Where is it?
It's in the CU Podcast folder. It's called Water Ripoff. It's right there, where you can look at comparisons of some of these game prices. Ian never finds the stuff, but it's
I got it.
Okay, so we can go through a bunch of these. You can just sort by maybe even by name if you want. We'll leave the big one in the middle for the last. You know what the big one is because it's there. So we're going to go through some of these recent events and compare them to the past. Castlevania went for in April a 9.4 sealed went for $72,000, and then it recently.
Another 9.4 A+.
33.6.
33.6. That's September 29th.
That's a pat math plunge of about 45%, about nearly 50%.
Wait, what did it go for?
72 versus 33. So it lost.
I'm sorry.
50%. I'm sorry. It's
Come
like
on,
50.
Pat.
It's like 57% drop.
Jesus, buddy.
Well, that's why it's pat.
Get it together.
I wanted to check some NES ones because we didn't talk a huge amount about NES ones last.
Yeah,
time.
we've kind of been focusing on the 64 stuff.
How about the Contra one? There's a timeline here for the Contra one here. So we start at the really expensive Contra. A Contra 9.28 Plus sealed went January of last year. This is a long tail. This is a year and a half. 31.2 thousand. Then it went for 15.6 thousand in August 5th.
Oh, you missed the April one. April was 21.6.
So it dropped 50% in a year, and then it went for another 50%. It went in August from 30 to about 15, right? Do I have that right? And then it goes for
10.8 September 29th.
So the same exact grade.
My plus or minus a couple pluses, but
so it's dropped 2/3, 60-something percent. It's dropped in what is that, a year and a half, something like that.
It's wild.
Do I got that right?
It's bongo bangers. It's wild.
Let's go to Ninja Gaiden. There's 3 examples.
So the really expensive was the original. It was July 9th, 2021.
Sister's birthday. 18.6 thousand.
18.6.
Then January
28th, 13.8.
And then it keeps dropping to August 5th.
7.2.
7.2. So already you have it dropping. That's a drop of 11. That's like 70%. And then from August to September, Ian.
3,120. Another plunge of 50%, more than 50%.
That's a 9.6. It doesn't have the plus. They're going to try to argue it doesn't matter to me. That plus is not worth it dropping $28,000. $15,000 Three over 18, Ian. What is that? That's about
I don't fucking know.
God, 15% of the value. It's dropped like 85%, something like that. So it's bad.
It was bad.
I looked up
real
Pokemon.
bad.
One more Zelda. Zelda 2. I always forget about Zelda 2. The reason I like to look up Zelda 2, Ian, there's a lot more sealed Zelda 2s than Legend of Zeldas.
Sure.
And it's one they reissued more, I believe, later on. So Zelda 2, 9.6 A plus sealed, April 2nd of last year, went for 38,400. A Rev A, not the first release. Oh, it says early production, but I guess I did Rev A sometimes, not when it was early production. I don't care. So 38.4 thousand, April 2nd. And then dropped to 10.8 thousand this recent auction, the same exact one.
The same exact one. That was it. Okay.
9.6 A plus sealed. Same round seal of quality. That's a loss of about 60-something%. So all of these are getting destroyed. Pokemon Red, I looked up, Ian. Game Boy game was probably the biggest Game Boy one that we've seen, I believe.
Yeah.
Of these, more than the other. For some reason, there's more reds, I think, than blue and yellows that I've seen come up, but whatever. Because was red the first one that came out? They all came out at the same time?
Red and blue came out at the same
Okay.
time. So we had one in November 20th, 2020 that went for, this was a 9.8 A double plus. Went for 84,000. And then we have, what do we got here? We have a 9.8 A double plus from August 2022, 45,600. So almost 50%, 45,600. So almost a 50% drop off.
It's like 45% drop, a $40,000 loss if you're there. And it's the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
exact
with something
one.
like that, you want to bring up the amount of money, not just the
and there
percentage.
there were other bad Pokemon Reds, but they were like, oh, this is the Rattata versus the Sandshrew one. So people would argue that, well, it's not the same exact one, but there were some bad drops of some of the other ones. It was just hard to line up, versions versus grades, but they were looking bad. Now we get to the Nintendo 64 stuff. This is the newest console out of all of these that you can talk about. And once we talk about you get to the late 90s, it's so much easier to find these sealed games, in my opinion. GoldenEye, like our pal Carl Dropes loves GoldenEye, speed runs it. 9.2 GoldenEye, A plus seal. January of this year went for 31.2 thousand. And then August 7th, we didn't think touching this one. The August 7th one, it dropped to 14.4. It dropped over 50%.
Oh, we didn't bring that up.
I think we brought that up last month. That's a bad one.
Yeah.
But what's the worst one?
Mario Kart. So we'll start at the...
Do you want to start with what it just went for instead? What it just went for?
Sure, let's do that. That's more fun. Okay, 9.6 A plus, September 29th, 2022, 31,200.
Well, that's still insane to someone like me.
9.6 A plus plus, so 1 plus difference, right?
Okay.
April 22nd, 2022, $144,000.
It went from 144 to 31 in what amount of time? 4 months?
However, if you want to, and people will be that way, if you want to, just keep it with 1 plus, we can also point out that August 9th, or August 5th, 2022, the exact same grade as the one that we just mentioned that sold for 31 went for 48,000. So even if you just leave it to the 9.6 A plus in just under 2 months, it lost $17,000 worth of value.
Or about a third.
About a third. And if you want to include the second A plus plus,
I'm
people will
including
argue
that.
it, but go for it. 100. I mean, it's just that's a catastrophic crash to a price.
An A plus to an A plus, to me, is a very minor difference in a grade. We're talking about, that's a seal quality. It's the same grade on the box. That drops $113,000 in 5 months. That person's going to have to hope that extra plus is really worth it to someone, because someone just only spent $31,000 for just an A plus. So at that point, that's to me close to how bad the Sonic drop was. That's the big loser here.
Yeah.
Of this round. So, like we said before, this is not a mere correction. The speculators are going to say this is normal, things are overpriced, but we have evidence, Ian, that they are not only starting to panic. These speculators,
they're starting to say the quiet parts out loud about this hobby.
Yes, that's the problem. So, on Instagram, good old Instagram.
This is the most hilarious shit to me.
I got to log into my Instagram. On a post from, who's the post by? From _worlds, who that's actually a name I recognize from back in the day on a Nintendo Age. It actually is. Actually is.
So basically they're commenting on the sale of the Mario Kart 64, the 9.6 A+ that we just mentioned that ended on September 29th for the $31,200. And this is what they say. This was just silly. I have no other way to put it. This game is rare in near mint copies. There are only 17 copies graded 9.0 or higher in the first print. To compare that to some of the other N64 heavy hitters, Super Smash Bros. Has 35, GoldenEye 28, Super Mario 64 has 28, Ocarina of Time 66, Ocarina of Time Collector's Edition 66, Ocarina of Time Normal 28. And just like I predicted, they all massively underperformed. At some point, the auction house has to say no. No, they don't. I mean, what kind of delusional headspace are you in where you think the auction house gives a fuck about you and your collectibles? They are in it to make money. They will make the money while they can. If they think that this is going to keep crashing, why wouldn't they just keep selling now? They'd get the higher buyer's premium. This made no sense. 3 of the 17 nice copies in one auction and 6 in the last year and a 7th coming up next month too. They're upset because this is exposing everything.
Yeah, I got to look at my phone. My browser's not working here. I'm going to go through this. So these speculators who claimed this was all on the up and up, and it was just Ian, it was the free market before acting normally, raise the prices. They are bitching at the free market now, responding to the dump that this is from the pump, and they're complaining about it. They're complaining. They are. It's the angry tweet at the auction house.
It's the haha. I love sewing. Oh, reaping sucks. Yeah, like, yes. Of course. This is, I mean, you can't ask for it both ways.
Yes. They're complaining that these are coming out too often for their liking. That's what they're complaining about. Well, why didn't you just buy it then? If you think it's too low, why don't you buy another one then? If you think it's a discount, why don't you put your money in? Because that's not how this works.
This person here is a little bit, heads screwed on a little bit tighter. Fletchro Retro. Yeah, I feel Heritage dropped the ball for their customers on this one. Big fat L here for sure. But I agree with what others are saying. Shit is being dumped. What is, Heritage Auctions going to do with all the dumped inventory? They sell it.
They want to make money.
Yeah, they make money. They do not care about your hurt feelings in the money that you've lost on this.
Unless
they're not. If they really did listen to you and slow down, that would be colluding.
That'd be more colluding, which we think might be happening already. Remember, we haven't had
You can't do that. You can't manipulate the. You can't.
We still haven't had a Super Mario 64 in a high grade be auctioned all this year.
Yeah.
A 9.6 or a 9.8. So that's weird in of itself. I'm going to go in order here, Ian, best I can. VVG Club, or people need to realize that we are in a bear market and the speculators have left the scene. Time to hold rare games for a bit and not sell. VVG Club is Eric Nyerman, the dentist that we speak about. You are one of the speculators.
Yes.
That's why you got into this. That's why you raised $1 million with your friends and pals to buy this shit, because you thought it was going to go to the moon.
Yeah.
You're the people that are now worried about this. The collectors who actually cared about this stuff, they would welcome these prices going down. They wouldn't be bitching about them on Instagram.
Yeah.
And then Minus World responded to him saying, sarcastically, great point, but don't worry, bud. We have another 9.6 A+ coming up next month. They realized that, oh no, we're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
We're in trouble. The dentist says people need to recognize that although these games are awesome and rare, the hundreds of speculators that were bidding on these just to make money are gone. We are back to the hundreds of rare games being bid on by the hundreds of existing collectors left. I don't know how that math works out. Rarity only begets high prices when the supply outweighs the demand. We aren't there quite yet, but we will soon. I mean, that's just to basically say that we're in trouble because the speculators are losing their asses and they're trying to get out. That's what it is. But if it wasn't for the speculators, Eric, you wouldn't have an equity gain on most of the shit you're holding. They don't realize, they don't want to recognize that. You can't blame speculators for getting out or people that are scared when that's the reason the price is inflated ridiculously in the first place on them. Like it's to see the logic these people try to maintain is nuts. Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, basically, when they see it collapsing, they start talking like it's an asset.
The market is extremely, this is from someone named Carl. The market is extremely soft to boot right now. You got to keep that in mind. Recession and bad economy, and it's only going to get worse, I'm afraid. Still, an N64 game getting 20K isn't anything to scoff at unless you overpaid from Heritage in 2021. Pretty decent points there. I will say, though, that a bunch of fake money getting pumped into the economy the past couple of years is one of the reasons why a lot of these collectibles went up. Not just this, Pokemon cards, NFTs, and crypto.
Absolutely.
That's part of the ride. Green Hair Game says, in principle, I agree that three of these Mario 64 card 64s should not be stacked on top of each other. In this specific instance, I do not think that this is the worst example of an undercopy or two performing
I do
poorly.
not understand these new terms.
They're trying to make new terms up. I can remember much crazier examples where a second lower graded copy bombed and the higher graded first. Yeah. People talk about fluctuations happening before. This is not a fluctuation. When these prices are dropping 50 to 70%, that's not a fluctuation. A fluctuation to me would be something dropping 15, 20%, coming back over that amount and like regressing to a mean. That's a fluctuation. When stuff is dropping 70% or more, that's not a fluctuation. Unless you told me these prices are going to come back in the next couple months, it's not a fluctuation. Joan Bone, that's another OG or collector from Nintendo age, I recognize. There's a lot of people who want out of video games, it seems. Poor placement, but if people are lining up to dump, then you can't blame the auction house for taking them on. Having said that, probably the worst placement of significant titles I've seen thus far. So Joan Bone makes a great point. I don't understand why the placement would matter if this stuff is coveted. Who cares?
Right.
You're just basically shining a light in the fact that there's not a huge amount of people that are buying these. If they have to be spaced out that much.
If they have to be spaced out and you're losing money like that, there's not a whole lot going on. If it was truly worth what it says it is, it would sell for that price.
Minus Rolls responded, I do see your point, but it's also in the auction house's best interest to say no to something like this. What? They get less of a cut across 3 big auctions and end up with disappointed sellers. But you have happier people buying it if it's all about collecting them. Like, and they get a bunch of each. So the gambit that someone like Miners was thinking is that don't put out these games, pretend nothing's happening, and then 6 months or a year from now, you're going to get a larger return. Heritage Auctions doesn't fucking care. They want their money now because they've seen probably markets like this before come and go.
Yes, and Heritage Auctions isn't a small mom and pop business. I mean, it's just a pipeline of cash.
Jim Jupiter with one of the best responses in this thread. Responding to Minus Worlds. But why? I guess why hold things off? It was hyperinflated for 3 years thanks to WADA/Heritage and resellers looking to maximize profits. So now things are slowly going back to normal, making the hobby, in quotes, actually a hobby again and more affordable too. That's what we were saying. If you really cared about it as a hobby, you wouldn't care about these prices crashing. You can buy more of them
right
at lower risk.
And shouldn't that be what you want to do if you're if you're so certain that the value is going to go back up?
Jim Jupiter is repeating stuff we says. This is not my alt account. I don't think these games are worth 5 and 6 figures, judging from the decreasing prices. After the comic dealers and Rally Otis pulled out, and after everything of value was flipped several times and ran out of next greater fool buyers, crypto is down, and the IT magnates can't buy all those Marios. Yes. That's exactly what's happening. Fresh blood came in, like we said.
There's no one there. There's no one left to throw ridiculous amounts of money at it. So we're starting to see what people might consider this.
Sure.
The value, what value they might consider this at. Like, this is the prices we're getting now.
Sure. To talk more about hyperinflation, Jim Jupiter, very smart, knows what they're talking about the things in this thread. And of course, he's getting pawed like, oh, if you just say you don't care about video games, man. It's like, dude, relax. We know you're on the hook for a lot of monies.
Yeah, what was the thing? Going back to it, the initial comment. This is just so silly, blah, blah. This game is rare in near mint copies. There are only 17 copies graded 9.0 or higher. Well, sure, but that doesn't mean that they have to be worth a set amount.
Correct.
Like, what does that mean? That doesn't mean anything.
And that doesn't count the copies that aren't graded.
Right.
That doesn't count the ones that haven't been graded yet, or the ones that WADA are sitting on, or CGC.
You almost see the light switch turning on and being like, oh, I overpaid.
Sure.
Just because that's what you paid for it doesn't mean that's what it's going to be worth forever.
Sure.
Doesn't matter if there's only 19. If no one cares about it, if no one ends up caring about it, then the price is going to keep going down.
Someone named Fletro Retro said, I feel Heritage dropped the ball for their customers on this one. Big fat L. Oh, that's the one you brought up?
Yeah. But it gets better.
The customers are the people buying.
Yes.
As well. Like, it's both. It's not just the sellers, it's people buying
the
them.
Second half of their comment, though, is fairly, that's the one I brought up. It's fairly reasonable.
Big fat L to you, because
Right.
you have a bunch of equity tied up that's losing money week by week. There's a few more here. I wish the freaking browser worked on this. Gamer Collector 2 said, sorry, but I'm not sure I understand your logic. Say no to what? If there's no reserve, they can't say no. It's sold based on bids. They have to sell it for whatever price it ends up as if there's no reserve. Seems people just aren't into buying the big hype anymore. Great. Thank you, Gamer Collector 2.
The hype is gone. Too bad. You can't demand the hype to come back.
Exactly. It's ridiculous. It's actually... Yeah, they're just, like you said, they're exposing themselves public like this. You see the infighting, and they're blaming an auction house. Yep. They're blaming an auction house for who helped them get to the point they were at the past few years with these prices. It's insane.
Yeah.
So there you go, and it's just going to get, in my opinion, worse and worse.
Yep.
I don't think they're coming back. I'm trying to think, Ian, of a market where it was obviously a pump and dump or some sort of like glorified greater fool theory, or once it just deflated like Beanie Babies, it eventually came back to the same heights afterwards. I'm trying to think, was there everything something like that? I guess you can say sports cards now.
Some sports cards, yes, that's what I was going to say.
It's an entirely different generation and it's different cards. It's not the same cards that are being bought and sold.
Correct. And even up to right before the pandemic, Vonnie's business was selling boxes of these old cards for $5-10. Like,
sure.
Because my friends were buying them and they were opening them, and yeah, you could occasionally find like a decent card or something in there, but this shit was worthless until the pandemic hit again.
Sure.
So I think sports cards have been kind of on the rise again, over the past decade, but it was really the pandemic again that injected a lot of cash into it.
And then it's the newer stuff. It's the chase cards of the new stuff versus are people going out and buying 1991 Pro Set football cards?
No, there's very, very little in the old sets that people are looking for right now.
It's yes. So
some things, but very little.
So I mean, like stuff that like in its time and place, like Pogs from the 90s. Once that was gone, will that ever come back? Beanie Babies never came back. That's what I mean. So like
even the overpumped comics markets, like the 90s, like that stuff never really just magically became worth anything.
Oh no, they're worthless.
Yeah.
I'll look up. Good point. I'll look up like Rye number 3 right now. That was one of those ones that was like tough to find from Valiant that my cousin put on his wall to brag to me about it. Rye number 3 and 4, the rare ones that were low print run that were probably worth hundreds then. Buy it now, both for $27. Stuff like that. He would. I'm not going to get at my cousin, but he would make fun of me for wanting to buy this stuff from the 60s and 70s and stuff that was like actually people liked for a long period of time. Oh, this is the stuff. It's Rye 3 and 4. It's a hot comic now. These they didn't make a lot of because no one cared about Rye.
No one gives a shit. I don't even know who Rye is.
You know who Rye is?
No.
Okay, Rye was one of the big Valiant like samurai guys. For there. But anyway.
Yeah, I see him.
A little red dot on his chest. There's a couple different versions. Anyway. So I guess we're going to see more infighting in the future, Ian. And I wonder, this is going to be the fun part. This is where it's really going to get juicy. When they figure out one of their own starts to dump all their stuff.
Oh, yeah.
When they figure out there's someone, because it's gonna get to the point where one of them's going to be like, hey, I don't want to keep losing equity. I gotta get out now. They're going to know who's selling what. And they're all going to turn against each other.
There's going to be someone in that group that is the least financially set, and then they're going to start to look at this as an albatross, and they've got to fucking sell it off.
Yes, but they're going to pump. They're not going to tell anyone though.
No,
because these are all people that care about money.
But people will find out.
Yes, money is what drives this. Again, so people are going to find out, and it's going to be fireworks. So maybe we'll just sneak in some Instagram conversation in the future.
Yeah,
we'll see.
We'll see.